Alright, welcome to the overview video for Vector Visuals, an easily customizable asset pack for After Effects. This is a collaboration between myself and MoGraph extraordinaire Devin Burgoyne. We've been working on this for a very long time. We put a lot of heart and soul into it, and I'm very excited to show you how it works. It's very easy to use, and I think that there's a lot of potential here to make some very cool stuff. So let's get into it. In order to get to this state, all you gotta do is just double click on the project file, or you can just drag it into an open After Effects project panel window. There are no dependencies here, so you're never gonna get any kind of missing footage. All you need is just this .aep. So when you open up the project, it's going to look something like this. You're going to have this folder structure here. It just has this vector visuals hierarchy, and then all of the categories of all of the different compositions. So when we have a composition open like this, you're going to see a couple of things. So every single composition has a yellow controls layer. This is how you are going to control everything on a higher level. And your controls layer is going to open up on the effect controls panel. It's up here. Don't see this panel, you need to go to window and then down to effect controls, and it will pop up here. For the sake of this video, I'm going to move this panel over here just so I can have this open the entire time and my project panel open so I can see both things at the same time. All right. Now you'll notice that I have now a bunch of really nice controls over this composition. So I can change the size of all of these shapes, size difference, the starting orientation of all of these circles. I can change their speed, and some of these things you're not going to notice until you start playing the video, and I can change their colors. Now you'll also notice that the top of this composition, we have this gray layer with double slashes. Anytime that you see a gray layer with double slashes, this is a note from us, the creators, myself and Devin Burgoyne, to you. This is a note from us to you about something special in this composition that we want you to know. So in this case, we're telling you that you can duplicate these layers below here as many times as you'd like. So let me go ahead and grab this bottom layer, and I will just click Control D. And now I can just keep adding circles into this composition, and these circles are also going to get controlled by these controls. Pretty cool. All right, let's move on to another category. So under the category of basic shapes, we have all of these different spinning shapes. Let's check out the cube. Okay, cool. Who doesn't like a spinning cube? In this case, we have a controls layer. Again, we can do things like change the speed that this is going to spin at, change individual speeds of every direction, Y, X, and Z. And we can also change just the orientation. So any way that it will just be facing at a specific time. We can change the scale of this and the stroke width. You'll notice that stroke width is maintained no matter which way it is facing. Anytime that you see numbers in red here, it just means that there is an expression applied. In this case, it is a clamp, which means that you can't take this past 100. It's going to revert back to 100 because obviously you can't have above 100% or below 0% opacity. It's just not possible. Okay, so you don't have to worry about red numbers. It's not trying to yell at you. There's just things that you can't do in that case. You can also apply trim paths here and stuff like that. So all these basic shapes are pretty much have the same rules. We don't need to go into them. Let's go on to grids. Now, in all of these cases, we have set layers and properties to be what we think is the best case. So in this case, this controls layer is an adjustment layer because that's the way that we think it should be working. So this adjustment layer is turned off. Turn it back on, results are going to change, right? And the grid layer has effects applied to it, but these effects are linked to this adjustment layer, which has the controls where you should be controlling stuff. Now, in any case, you are free to go into anything and fine tune the controls as you see fit, even off of the control layers. We don't want to lock you out of anything. Just know that the controls here are provided for a reason, because of how we think that things should be done. But obviously, for anyone who wants to go in and get crazier with it, every expression is available to be messed with, fine-tuned. Nothing is hidden from anyone. You are free to really rip this thing apart and go crazy with it. Now, there might be some cases where you have to do a little bit of manual labor to make these things work. So in this case, we wrote a note that says duplicate columns layers to match columns. And as you can see on the controls, the columns are set to 10, which means that you need to have 10 of these column layers in order for it to work properly. So if you see here that I changed this column slider to be 11, now we have this block missing. And wouldn't you know it, if we just duplicate another column, now it's working again properly. So for some of these things to work, just look out for our little notes, and when you're messing around with the controls, it should all be totally gravy. In some cases, there's adjustment layers that are driving the effects. For example, on the random poly collider, this is being run by a kaleidoscope effect. And as you can see here, we have an adjustment layer that if you turn off, now it just looks like a bunch of random gibberish. And this is all noted here. Again, nothing is hidden from you. There's no man behind the mirror. All this stuff should be as clear as possible, but we still have a control layer that is controlling everything for you. And in some cases, keyframes are driving the action. This is a rarer instance. We tried to keep keyframes out of it as much as possible, but we want to give you hints on where keyframes should be used. So, for example, on this sacred geometry one, there are keyframes open here. So we'll have some keyframes that should be used to drive the action. And in this case, you can just click U on your keyboard, U, and click U, and that will open and close any keyframes that are being used. So any place where we think that keyframes are a good driver for the animation, we've already put them down on the timeline. So these would be used on the controls layer. You can keyframe anything that's on the controls layer with a stopwatch, keyframe it to your heart's delight. So we just have a nice closing of the sacred geometry. Then we have a miscellaneous folder. These are for all the comps that could not find a home in the other section. We have an animate dash, a gradient, low poly ocean, sparkles, all pretty self-explanatory. Now some categories have a composition that has its own folder. Now I will show you why. So under stair grid, let's click into here. We have this grid that looks like this, and inside it has its own pre-comps. So in a case like this, when a composition has its own pre-comps inside of it, we make a folder so that everything is categorized nicely. So inside of stair grid, see we have a null object, and we move this around. Everything looks at this null object, and you could attach things to this null object and everything will look at it. Now the stacking order of this one does matter. So you can see that we have a note here. You can duplicate these pre-comps as desired, but these are going off an index expression. If I double click E, this will bring up this expression. You can see that we're using an index expression, which means it's going off of the layer number. So if you were to put anything in between this control layer and these pre-comps, for example, like this, you're gonna mess up the grid that's happening here. So you just wanna make sure that you keep these in order. So if I click on the controls now, we're gonna have control over this grid spacing, the horizontal spacing, the vertical spacing, and the number of columns and the base position. Okay, and then if we go into one of these pre-comps, we can go ahead and change it and replace it with whatever we'd like, and it will update everything else out here. These are all pre-comps. All right, pretty cool. We also have a nature category. We got all kinds of neat stuff like bubbles. Ooh. The bubbles, you have all kinds of control over their size, their end size, how fast they're gonna rise and fall. You can change the rise speed. You can change their rise delay and what color they're gonna be when they end and when they start. And you can change if they have a stroke or not, and if they're random. They have fills or not. You make really interesting bubble videos. Who doesn't like bubble videos? So there's a campfire. And the big thing about all of these is that now while we gave you the controls here, so we want to say, okay, I want wavy flames and I don't want them wiggly and I want the frame rate to be 24 frames per second. So you made this campfire here, you edited it up, but we didn't lock out any of these layers. So while this campfire is animating like this, you can go ahead in here and you can pull down the either scale or the path here, and you can just go ahead and animate this flame. So if you want the fire to light, well, you could just put a keyframe on the scale and bring this down to 0, and then you could animate that flame up like this. So for people who just want to have basic controls, just stay on the control layer and do anything like that. And then for people who want to go in and fine tune anything, you're free to go in and do anything you want on the other layers. And if you break anything and you screw up the file and you get errors, well, no problem. Just make a copy of the original vectorvisuals.aap and just restart it and it'll be okay. So we made this cool cloud generator. You can adjust the scale, number of puffs, all this kind of stuff. Again, if you ever see anything with like an index, you just don't want to change the order of stuff because you will start to screw up how the index expressions are stacking. But we have this cloud generator. You can make any kind of clouds you want and move it around. It will start to get screwed up if you slide it off the edge like this, like right when you get right to the edge here, that goes away. Never able to figure out how to fix that, so that's just one little tiny limitation that you should be aware of. But everything else is pretty cool. You can just kind of make all of these different types of clouds pretty easily, and just if you just want to change the seed up like this, you can. And then there's like another composition for clouds multiple here. So again, you could just, there's a note here to duplicate clouds as desired. You could just keep duplicating clouds, move them around the scene, and then we have controls here for if you just want to randomize them all together under your set of parameters, and then you could just animate them around and have a nice little sky going on, and just get a stroke. They're all cool clouds around in your sky. Very easy to set up a scene of clouds. Have some DNA that's looping. Again, we have a note here that's like duplicate the rungs to match the number to display. In this case, we have 15 rungs, so you want to have 15 rungs here that are matching that number, that it will display the right amount of rungs. In case of the eyeball, we already put some keyframes down so that you can see how this animation kind of works. This one has very simple controls. Not a lot we could give you here, but if you want to, you can make it blink and you can make it look around like this. Whee! And you can make it creepily stare and blink. Falling leaves is another example of something that has contained comps. So if you open up a leaf comp or you open up the full comp, you can replace the leaves in here. You can duplicate the leaves as many times as you'd like, and they will appear randomly around the composition. And then you have the controls for your leaves. You can change how fast they fall, how much they wiggle around, how much they rotate. You can change the colors and how the colors interact with things, and yeah, make a cool falling leaf scene. For the rainfall, this is a very stylized rain, so you can change the angle that stuff's falling. You can change the variation between the length and the shortness of them. You can change the spacing between them. You can change the speed, the color, make some very cool stylized rain. All grass, really wanted to make grass because I love grass. You can just keep duplicating the grass to match the number of layers. So let's say we have the layers being 5. We'll just keep raising this and we'll get more and more grass. And then we can change the amount of variation between everything. We can make the width wider or shorter. And these will all just wave around, and we can change the wiggle speed, the wiggle amount, make the blades taller or shorter, change the position between them, change the colors, yada, yada, yada. We have some water here. We have control over the highlights thickness, all the variation between the different levels of the water, and kind of change the plane that you see the water on. And then you can just change up the seed and get different variations of the water, change the colors, change how dark the shadows are, how light the highlights are, and some ripples here to go with your raindrops. Maybe you can put the water as well. So we have a note here, you can duplicate the ripples as much as you'd like. So if you just keep duplicating ripples, they will appear in random spots, and you would just want to stagger these start points, and they will just keep playing. They'll just keep repeating forever, but you want to stagger the endpoints so that they aren't just keep appearing at the same time. Circle web. This one, it moves a little bit slow, but I think the result is very cool. You can change the number of points, the speed, and the radius here. If you add more points, it's probably going to move even slower. Less points, maybe it'll move a little bit faster. You can change up the speed of it. And then for anyone who's crazy, if you want to dive into this expression and try to figure it out or edit it, you are free to. So there's a clock here. Not much to say about this one, but it is accurate. You could tell time with this. You could let it run, or you can edit the clock to tell time on your own and make it not accurate with real time. If you'd like, you can lie about time. Very cool. Gradient circles, we've been over this. Orbit. You want to make like a solar system overhead. Go ahead. Change the random seed, distance between everything. Max distance, the minimum distance, the random seed, the opacity, stroke width, radial points. This is like a cool retro thing. You can keep duplicating these shapes as desired. Let's see what else we got. You want to match this number of shapes with the number of layers so that you're not just keep getting this blue, because if you don't match the number of shapes, then you will get the blue on your bottom layer. So let's just keep cranking this up so that this gradient color matches the bottom like that. Very cool. You can change the speed and the number of points and keep making cooler, more complex variation, or simpler. 0. Have some space ones like a black hole. You can just edit everything about this black hole. Yada, yada, yada. Warp speed is another example of something with keyframes in here that are already set for you at an ideal place. Now, obviously, you can go in and edit the stuff. You can delete the keyframes. You can turn the looping on and off. So if you leave looping on, this will loop perfectly forever. But you could just turn looping off, and then this won't loop anymore. It will just stop there. So that's up to you. If you want it to loop on and off forever, or you could just kind of grab everything and alt drag it out, make it slower, or just delete the keyframes and try your own. Got a rainbow tunnel. You could turn vignette on and off, which will change up the colors, change the width speed and the color pulsing and the stroke widths and all that kind of good stuff. And another really simple spiral I might recognize from one of my YouTube videos. And then a couple more tunnels. Got this weird checkerboard tunnel, which I saw in a nightmare. Grown to like it now. And then finally, we have this hypno tunnel, which we just have all the cool controls. You can change all these repeaters and the shape radius, stroke widths, and the amount of points that this thing has. Make a triangle. And if you really want to get in here, there are some controls that I left off of this poly shape. So really get in here and go crazy with it if you'd like. All right, so I'm pretty sure that is it. I think we covered everything in this video, but if you still have any questions at all, feel free to leave a comment on this video and we'll try to help you out as best as we can. And feel free to check out the Vector Visuals website. The link will be in the description of this video, and there'll be more FAQs and support that you can check out. And I really, really hope that everybody enjoys this product. We put a lot of heart and soul into making this, trying to make the best possible thing for other artists to use, and I really hope that it shines when you're using it. I hope that it's a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun making it, and it was a lot of hard work. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you enjoy. Goodbye.